Welcome to the Slightly Greener Life podcast. This is your host, Tanya Harris. I am an award-winning environmental toxin expert, best-selling author, and mother of three. I created this podcast as a place to help busy moms ditch the overwhelm and start living a low-toxin life. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Welcome to episode 8 of the Slightly Greener Life. I'm so happy you're here, and I can't wait to share these tips with you today about my favorite odor-busting product, which is baking soda, believe it or not, and you're about to hear why. But first, if you're finding these podcast episodes helpful, please share them or my social media posts about the episodes, and also please rate and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Plus, it helps my podcast get found so this info can help others, which is my main goal. So thank you so much for your support on that. Now, back to the story about why baking soda is my favorite odor-busting product. So picture a bright, sunny day. The car is packed. We got all 3 kids in the back seat, and they are all adults, so I'm not going to lie. That part wasn't that hard. And we're about to make the 2.5-hour trip to my in-laws for a family birthday. And I was ready, probably not on time, and I had my favorite kind of hot coffee waiting for me in the car that my hubby had just picked up for me. Things were so good. And then I opened the door and I saw where the coffee was. My husband had just moved it onto the top of the center console for just a second so he could make room for our phones by the cup holders, which all good intentions, until my dog jumped into the car, and you can guess what happened next. Coffee all over the passenger seat. And I have tiny holes all over my leather seats, and it was everywhere. And of course, I was freaking out. I wanted to stay home and clean up my car, but that wasn't an option. We were already late. We already had everything packed up. So I did what I could, and I wiped the coffee with damp dish rags and paper towels, but it stunk. So then I decided to drive, and my husband was nice enough to sit on the towels in the passenger seat. And the car baked in the sun all day once we got into my in-laws' house. And on the way home, I had a lovely baked, moldy coffee scent the entire way home. And I was just sick to my stomach because of the smell, and also because I thought, this is it. This is my new car smell. And I knew that having an air freshener was just going to cover the smell and it would come back. Or at the very least, my car would smell like a baked coffee apple orchard or something. So I did the only thing I thought might work. I sprinkled my go-to odor eliminator, baking soda, everywhere in my car. Now keep in mind, it only takes a thin layer of baking soda. I didn't dump it in piles all over the place, but really I just put a thin layer because that's all that's needed to absorb the odors. So I sprinkled pretty much the entire box in a thin layer on the seat it happened in and on the floor mats of the car. So I'm not a professional, so side note here, I don't recommend what I did, but I placed paper towels down on the seat of my car and placed the baking soda on top of that so it didn't get into the little tiny holes. I'm not sure if that's good advice. I just want to say that's what I did. And then I crossed my fingers and I went into the house. So I left that overnight. And then when I went outside the next morning to vacuum it up, I decided to reluctantly stick my head into the car and take a whiff and see how the car smelled. And guess what? No smell at all. So I was shocked, but honestly, I wasn't completely surprised. I thought it would take a few applications at the very least, but it only took one. And I wanted to start out with this story because it's a perfect example of what baking soda can do. I can't guarantee it will work for every odor, but it sure does come pretty close. And it's so good to know that we can attack odors at the source, and even better, we can do it naturally without toxic chemicals. Because I have to say that I was a candle-loving, laundry-scented plug-in fan. So as much as it pained me to learn the information that I'm about to tell you, what I realized was that it's actually fun to naturally freshen our home. And I was able to sleep better at night knowing that I was removing a lot of toxic chemicals that I didn't even know we were being exposed to around the clock. And not only that, I was actually getting rid of the odors and not just covering them up. So let's talk a little bit first about why it's important to naturally freshen your home as much as you can. Indoor air can be up to dozens of times more polluted than outdoor air, and there are many contributing factors to that, and some we have control over, like cleaning products that can off-gas into the air even when they're not being used. And then, of course, there's things like air fresheners and scented plug-ins and scented candles and all sorts of things. And these are all things that we mainly have control over. But then there's other things like building materials, flooring, furniture, and paint that are usually a little bit harder to control. So today we'll start with the basics and what I believe is one of the simplest, fastest, and cheapest ways to freshen your home's air without toxic chemicals and potential health effects. And it's totally understandable to want your house to smell like an apple orchard, or like me, like nice, lightly scented, clean laundry, or like lemons, like I had just dusted all day. But those scented items are most likely releasing toxic chemicals into the air. And the reason I say potential health effects is because the fragrance that makes up most candles and other scented products, including air fresheners and cleaning products, contain most likely toxic chemicals. Fragrance is considered to be a trade secret. So companies aren't required to list individual ingredients on product labels, but that one word, fragrance, can be made up of several or more different ingredients, some that may be allergenic, some that could be toxic to the brain and nervous system. They can cause respiratory issues or can even be cancer-causing, among other health effects, or endocrine disrupting too, which we've been talking about, so hormone disrupting chemicals. And a University of Bristol study found that frequent use of air fresheners and aerosols during pregnancy and early childhood is associated with higher levels of diarrhea and earache in infants, as well as headaches and depression in mothers. And babies in homes where air fresheners were used every day were 32% more likely to suffer from diarrhea compared to those who were in homes that were used once a week or less. And mothers who used air fresheners and aerosols daily reported nearly 10% more headaches and a 26% increased risk of depression. So those are some scary facts. Now, this is an older study, but I think it's such a good example of things we might not think about when it comes to scenting or freshening the air in our homes, that it could be affecting our mental health like that. And a 2013 study published in the International Journal of Public Health found that the use of cleaning sprays and air fresheners during pregnancy may increase the risk of wheezing and infections in infants and children. And there are a lot more other recent studies that show almost the same thing, that the air quality in our homes really goes down when we use cleaning sprays and aerosols and air fresheners, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode. There are quite a few ways to freshen your indoor air, but today we'll keep it simple and we'll start with baking soda. This deserves its own episode because there are so many things that you can do with it. And the best part is that it actually gets to the root of the odor and doesn't just mask it like most air fresheners do. So just a little smidge of science here. The short answer for why it works is because baking soda is a base and most scents and odors are acidic. So baking soda is able to actually neutralize and absorb the odor. And side note, this is also why you don't want to reuse baking soda for cooking, because it can take on the scent and affect the taste of the baking soda, which you do not want. But when it comes to smells, one of the best ways to freshen your indoor air without toxic chemicals is with baking soda. And there are a lot of tips coming up here, so no worries about taking notes because as usual, I've got you covered. I'll have all of this info, including a downloadable cheat sheet on my website at slightlygreener.com/episode 8. And one thing I'd like to mention too before we get started with the tips is one of the things I think we really need to be okay with is that a clean house doesn't actually need to smell like anything, such as the strong, fresh laundry scent or the apple cinnamon that we might like. And the more you get used to not having a strong scent, the more you notice when you do go into homes and notice their strong scents. Like if they're using plug-in air fresheners or strongly scented candles, it's amazing how quickly you get accustomed to non-fragrance and then how quickly you may react with a headache or a sore throat when you're around strongly scented homes or when you're walking down the cleaning product aisle at the store even. So let's talk about some of the common places in our homes where odor can lurk and where baking soda can especially come in handy. One of the first places is furniture. Things like couches and chairs can become stuffy smelling, and area rugs and even our carpets can trap scents and hold on to them. And the shaggier the carpet or area rug, the more fibers there are to hold on to these odors. And then there's other places too, like dog beds or areas where pets frequently lay down or hang out, like my dog right below my feet right now. Towels that need washing or that have sat damp too long in the laundry basket can also add to some of these household odors. And then areas where shoes and sports equipment are stored, bedding and comforters, especially because we tend to wash these less frequently than sheets and pillowcases. So they're soft surfaces too, they can trap odors. Even if you have stored bedding or blankets, those can be a source of kind of a musty odor. One of the best things you can do is keep them in a moisture-free area that gives some access to fresh air, or in a room with a dehumidifier in it. That can help also. And then, of course, garbage cans in the kitchen and in the bathrooms, but even in the outside bins. And sometimes even storage closets that don't get much activity, they can get a stale smell. And of course, inside cars. These are just a few of the places in our homes that might benefit from baking soda. So here are just a few ideas to get you started on how to use it. For couches and carpets, sprinkle a very thin layer. It doesn't take much because actually a thinner layer is better over a larger area. Over upholstered furniture or carpets, let it sit for a couple hours and then vacuum it up. And I do recommend, I've never had a problem with it, but if you want to do it in just a small area first, make sure it vacuums up easy and it doesn't do anything to your material. I always recommend that too. Always try it in a small section first, in a hidden section. And then as a sink scrub, so sometimes you have things in your sink that just don't come out easy. You can sprinkle a thin layer of baking soda in the sink and then gently scrub with a sponge or a soft scrub brush and rinse. Or if you have some of those extra stuck on messes, pour a little bit of baking soda on the mess and then spray it with white vinegar over the top and it will foam and kind of fizz. And then that really makes it easy to dissolve the mess. And then again, scrub it with a gentle sponge or a brush and rinse well. To freshen the fridge, most of us know this trick, but just open a box and put it in the refrigerator to absorb odors. To freshen small spaces, you can open a box and set it in a small closet or bathroom. Or for small areas like drawers, you can pour some baking soda into a small mason jar and then carefully poke holes in the lid and put that in a closet or drawer to absorb the odors. You can also add a few drops of your favorite essential oil if you want, and that will add a little bit more extra scent. So all you would need to do here is shake it every couple of weeks, the mason jar, and then replace it every few months, or every couple months actually. You'll know when it's time. And if you want to make it more decorative and leave it out, sometimes you can put it out in a bathroom. I like to pour the baking soda into the small mason jar, and then when I'm poking the holes, I actually also put a decorative piece of fabric and I pull it tight over the lid and I kind of tape it on the bottom and then poke the holes. So then it's kind of decorative too. You can do it that way. Baking soda is also a good option to use instead of scented garbage bags, which again may contain harmful chemicals to make that scent. And that scent just covers up the odors, usually making the garbage can smell like garbage and whatever scent the garbage bag is. All you need to do is remove the garbage bag and sprinkle a thin layer of baking soda on the bottom of the garbage can, and then place the non-scented bag on top. And you can leave the baking soda for a few garbage bag changes, but then dump it and wash it out when it starts changing color and it looks a little grimy. You'll definitely know when it's time. It'll turn brown. It'll just be kind of gunky. So then just dump it out, rinse out the inside of your garbage can, dry it completely, and then replace the thin layer of baking soda. It's that easy. And for things like carpets and area rugs, you can sprinkle a thin layer of baking soda and leave it for 30 minutes. You can leave it even for a few hours or overnight and then vacuum it up. You can do the same for pet beds. And then when it comes to stale smelling closets, if you have musty smelling blankets in there, just wash those and then place an open box of baking soda in that closet or use the mason jar trick. And if it's a closet that's not used very frequently, be sure to open the doors once a week or so for a little while at a time just to get some airflow going. And just like I did, you can use it when you have crazy smells in your car. Sprinkle some baking soda on the carpet over the stain or spill, and just let that sit for a little while, absorbing the odor before you vacuum that out. This is something I really wish I would have known when I had toddlers with sippy cups in my car way back in the day. And this also works great in areas where you keep shoes and even sports equipment. You can do these tricks at any time of the year, but during the hot summer months, it's more difficult to keep moisture at bay. So moisture leads to bacterial growth, which can produce odor, especially in shoes and sporting bags. So you can get rid of this odor by addressing the moisture rather than trying to just cover up that scent with a spray. Baking soda is also great at absorbing moisture while also absorbing the odors. So again, you can keep a box or a jar of baking soda on hand in closets or mudrooms where shoes and equipment are commonly kept. But you can also sprinkle baking soda into the soles of your shoes. And again, a thin layer is all you need. And then let it sit there for a few hours or overnight before dumping it and then wearing. And summer is a great time to get rid of moisture by machine washing canvas or fabric shoes. Just make sure to always check manufacturer labels before washing. And then rather than put them in the dryer, you can save energy and put them in the sun to dry completely. That's a great way to do it and get rid of the moisture. With summer finally coming up in this part of the world, things can get stinky fast. So I thought that this would be a perfect time to talk about my favorite air freshening option that actually works. So these are some of my favorite quick and easy and cheap ways to naturally freshen indoor air. And there are definitely other options that we'll talk about in another episode about green cleaning coming up. And don't forget, you can find all of these tips on my website at slightlygreener.com/episode 8. And that's it for another episode of The Slightly Greener Life. I have an early morning flight tomorrow, so I need to go pack a bunch of stuff that I have good intentions to use that I probably won't even touch, so it'll take me a while. I will not be doing a podcast episode on how to pack light. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me, and I will see you in the next episode. Are you tired of trying to figure out which ingredients are safe and which products are truly safer? The Slightly Greener membership is here to help you eliminate any guesswork. With an easy step-by-step process and a supportive community, you'll learn how to transition into a low-toxic lifestyle with just a few small changes at a time. This membership will provide you with the knowledge, tools, and support you need to keep your home looking and feeling healthy without turning your lifestyle upside down. You'll learn which ingredients to avoid and which brands are truly safer so that your search for safe products becomes easy and automatic. Imagine being able to make simple swaps that significantly reduce toxins in your home without sacrificing convenience or comfort. No more hours of researching trying to find safe products and no more guessing. I'll take the guesswork and hours of research off your plate, leaving you with more time to enjoy living a low-toxin lifestyle. Join the membership today and be free of worrying if your products may contain hidden toxic chemicals or worse, greenwashed formulas that are marketed as all natural or eco-friendly that turn out to be anything but. So empower yourself with this knowledge so that you can keep your family safe while saving money, time, and your sanity. Find out more at slightlygreener.com/membership. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Slightly Greener Life podcast. Please take a moment to subscribe to the show, and then be sure to share it with a friend who you know wants simple steps to living in this complex world. I'll see you next time.